walk.
Great.
We're good now.
We're good now. I'd like to call the February 4th regular meeting of the Louis Riel School Division Board of Trustees to order. We're going to have our land acknowledgement, and it's going to be read by Trustee Turner.
Thank you. The Louis Riel School Division brings together a community of schools on the traditional land of the Anishinaabeg and Dakota. Our division is located on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We recognize that Manitoba is also the traditional land of the Anishinaabe and Dene. We respect the treaties made on this land and acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and present. We dedicate ourselves to authentic alliance with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and cooperation. We recognize and honor Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, the source of Winnipeg's life-sustaining drinking water, as well as the treaty territories that generate and provide the electricity that powers daily activity throughout the province and beyond.
Thank you, Trustee Turner. I'd like to welcome everyone to our board meeting tonight. We received regrets from Trustee Sigurdsson, Trustee Kolichuk, Trustee Semenyola, and we have Trustee Nemeth online with us today. Welcome everyone who's online and who's here with us for a presentation. We're very happy to join us. We would like to welcome everyone participating in this hybrid board meeting, and we follow a formal structure where the work of the board is conducted in a public setting that gathers parents, students, staff, community, and other members. As acting chair, it's my duty to preserve order and decorum at all times. All in-person and verified virtual attendees are reminded to observe the procedural bylaws and to engage in a respectful and orderly manner. We'd like to remind everyone that there's a 15-minute public question period at the end of the meeting where verified virtual participants and verified in-person participants can bring forward questions for clarification regarding items on today's agenda. If your questions are not related to today's agenda, please reach out to the division by mailing info@lrsd.net. Finally, please be aware that we audio record board meetings after, and the link to the live stream of the meeting will be made available on the division website. Unless approved, other photographs, personal recordings, audio or visual otherwise are not. I'm going to do affirmation of vision and mission. Our vision is for all members of our community to excel as caring, confident, capable, and resilient lifelong learners who contribute to a democratic and sustainable world. Our mission is to provide a safe, inclusive, and engaging environment where personal and collective learning are valued and each one of us reaches our full potential. First thing on our list here is the approval of agenda and minutes. Approval agenda for the regular board meeting on February 4th. I haven't heard any one coming with questions, so I'd like to just approve that. 2.2, approval minutes of the regular board meeting January 1st. Oh, I need a vote.
You need a vote.
I'm trying to go too fast here. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Walker. Seconder, Trustee Turner. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The other one I don't need the vote for. Approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting January 21st. Are there any edits? Has anyone? Okay. If not, then I request that the January 21st minutes be accepted. Number 3, LRSD news. News from the Board of Trustees today is going to be provided by Trustee Nemeth up there.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to be joining you from afar, but I can feel the energy and the warmth in the room, so this is all good. Just a couple of things that I wanted to share. I had a busy week mid-January, but some exciting opportunities. And so I bring those as news starting on January 20th, when I had a chance to visit Glenwood School with Assistant Superintendent Jean-Paul, and had a nice visit around a school that is very big and very old, and on that day kind of quiet because it was the middle of a blizzard. And so there were lots of students that were regrettably absent that day, but that was certainly not unique to Glenwood School. We visited their developmental space. We talked about ongoing investments in building community and building collaborative teams with staff. We took a look at some of the adaptability conversations that the school community is having around PowerSchool and assessments and building committees. We talked about literacy as we walked the halls, DEI initiatives and work being done, community connections as Glenwood works to develop a new parent and caregiver council that will bring community voice into the school, and also a focus on student wellness. So it was a really nice opportunity to poke our heads into some classrooms, had some chats with some students, and saw what they were working on. And of course, the opportunity to always say hello to staff and see what everybody was up to. A couple days later, I attended a concert at Minnetonka School. So this was their winter concert. It was entirely student curated and student led. And so it was this really interesting fusion of some holiday songs with some Michael Jackson and some current pop. And the students were playing and the students were singing and the students were doing all the narrating and the introductions. And I should have actually made reference, sorry, Deneen, to that, or Jamie, to that photo that was at the beginning of the one of my favorite views, which is over the river towards the Forks, and always student artwork in the hallways. And so this one just really caught my eye, and it was just so beautiful and colorful. And with the addition of the snowflakes, I thought that's kind of a quintessential winter scene there. So I took a quick picture to share with you. And on January 23rd, I had the opportunity to visit at Archwood School and attend their winter concert. Again, there was a real student focus on some of the pieces and some of certainly the artwork and the decorations. One of the things that really caught my eye, and I had a great chat with the music teacher afterwards, was the instruments that some of the kids were using. And the last photograph there are a very beginner clarinet and flute that students can use starting even at 4 years of age, and gives them a very early introduction to learning how to play an instrument. And Archwood School was very fortunate because they were the recipient of a grant that allowed the purchase of a number of these instruments. And the students were playing them that evening. And the clarinet squeaks like a clarinet, even though it has a synthetic reed, and the flute sounds like a flute. And it was a really interesting opportunity to see instruments in the hands of kids that normally probably wouldn't get them until more in the middle years age grades. So nice to come in out of the cold on a few separate occasions over the last little while and spend time in community. And that's the news that I share tonight. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Trustee Nemeth. Appreciate that. Okay, next we're going to have news from the senior leadership team, and this time it's going to be provided by Assistant Superintendent Cormack.
Thank you. Starting with Dakota Collegiate, I want to share work by teacher Sherry Jessel, who hosted an ELA literacy celebration in late January for her grade 12 students. Sherry believes the work teachers do in ELA is both challenging and profound, and important to recognize and honor the effort and talent our students bring to the subject. Sherry had her colleagues of grade 12 students complete a project, a piece of writing or other work that exemplified deep ELA thinking to participate. It was a celebration and showcase of the brilliance and rigor of our students, and gave them a chance to share it with the people that have supported them throughout their learning journey. Over at Hastings, we want to celebrate the work of one of our parent mentors and leaders, Jasmine McIver, who was an integral part of the creation of the star blanket that now hangs at the René Delorme Center. It was a beautiful ceremony and it took place in early December. Jasmine supported the amazing quilt work in a matter of a few months. She's taken on a leadership role at the center including her work in the Footsteps program. And this project saw members of a number of different communities come together to complete the sewing. So if you have a chance to stop by the René Delorme Center to see it, it is spectacular. Over to Nelson Mac. Oh, let's see what you've got there, Mr. Riddick. Okay, I'll go back. Do you want to go back up to the one before that and I'll? Okay. Okay, over to Nelson McIntyre Collegiate, who was awarded the National Infrastructure Fund to continue work on the backyard project. Some of you will be very familiar with this project. This stems from students' desire to improve their school and their community. They want to build an inclusive gathering place that brings everyone together to learn and share. Students led research to design this inclusive and accessible space. We'll continue to bring updates about the space as it develops. So stay tuned. Recently at the Louis-Riel Arts and Technology Center, the baking and pastry program hosted the Joy Smith Foundation for a cookie decorating and information night. It was an inspiring and educational evening dedicated to raising awareness about human trafficking in support of the Joy Smith Foundation. The event, organized by our baking and pastry program, brought together community members for an informative session, followed by a fun and engaging cookie decorating activity. The evening featured insightful presentations from the CEO of the Joy Smith Foundation, Janet Campbell, alongside Joy Smith herself, a former LRSD educator. I'm going to say we because I had the pleasure to attend, gained valuable insights into the foundation's mission, its efforts to combat human trafficking, and how education plays a critical role in prevention. If you have not had a chance to hear a presentation by the Joy Smith Foundation, I strongly encourage you to do some research on your own. Reach out if you'd like some more information from me. I'm happy to provide some resources. While it was a fun evening, it was hugely educational and really important for all of us that work with young people. All right, finally, Lavallee School. Their kitchen has officially been named Gama Mawinang, meaning gathering place. The name beautifully captures the heart of our community space. The naming process and creation of a mural were collaborative efforts involving the Lavallee community, family, staff, and students. Through surveys and shared feedback, participants expressed what the kitchen represents to them. Local Métis artist and former LRSD student, Justine Prue, transformed these reflections into a stunning mural that celebrates the shared values and identity of the space. If you haven't stopped by Lavallee School lately, stop in and check it out. If you're hungry, stop by about 8:30 for breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent. Okay. So now I'm so pleased to head to number 4, which is our delegation to the board, the Covatan Parent Caregiver Committee delegation. And Superintendent Ron Kadav will introduce.
Thank you. I'm also very happy to welcome the Culverance Parent and Caregiver Committee delegation to the board meeting this evening. And I'll invite the principal, Amy Warner, to introduce the members of the PCC that are with us this evening.
I can get you guys to introduce yourself if you want. I'm Renee Friesen.
Yeah.
Daughter's in kindergarten at Burns and I'm at Burns. I'm Christy Cardy and my son is also in kindergarten. I'm Charlene Satcher. One of my children currently attend Burns, 2 are now at CJS. So former Burns kiddos, and I'm the chair of the PCC.
I'm Mika. I have a son that's in the 4th grade at Fern, and I have one that's going to be starting kindergarten next year.
A couple of our parents that were intending to be here aren't here yet, so we may have a few come. Yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay. Yes. So we're good, then I can kind of get started. So thanks so much for allowing us to present today. As mentioned, my name's Charlene, and just want to share kind of some of our steps, some of the things that we kind of have been doing, just in terms of some of our advocacy work. So just in terms of some brief historical background, the school was built in 1951, as many of you have heard and know, but perhaps not everyone who's tuning in, as a flood relief school. And it was built to have about a 25-year lifespan based on the materials that were used. Multiple additions have been added due to rising population as well as increased interest in French immersion schooling. When multiple issues continue to arise, engineers did a report and presented this to the board, the community, and I know that the board itself and senior leadership came out to present to us some of their hopes and even plans for what it might look like. So when that was presented, that was 2022. And since then, we had done multiple forms of advocacy in different ways up until even now, continuing to write letters, meet with different officials and just see how we can kind of get the ball rolling. So some key features of the report indicate many major capital budgetary items that need to be replaced or repaired. In terms of windows, many of the existing lower windows don't close fully or latch. The latches are broken, snow is collecting between the exterior wall and the metal framing. The proportion of the windows to the opaque wall don't meet the current guidelines that are in place. The stucco continues to deteriorate, shrinkage of the surface causing multiple cracks at the stucco level and many breaks at the joint locations where the add-ons have happened throughout the previous years. This separation also provides more spaces for water to infiltrate into the walls. There's also evidence of wetting at the grade level due to the cracking and the deterioration of stucco. The thermal barrier gap has been observed between the multiple areas, and there's a thermal barrier gap and air leakage, and that was observed at the roof and wall juncture. There's no defined air barrier system to prevent air leakage from the building, and the exterior brick is starting to bow. Mortar is coming out in between the bricks, and water staining is occurring. So that's kind of just the tip in terms of the structural concepts. There is a sulfate attack on the concrete piles in the original building, and this affects the structural capacity of that, what it's supporting. There needs to be significant work and costs associated with repairing and reversing the damage. And this, the engineer had reported that this was essential. There's large cracks in walls at multiple junctions. As noted, corrosion is observed at the roof joists and steel decking from the roof leaks. Zigzag cracking has been observed in the masonry, load bearing and partitionary walls. And I know for anyone who's kind of even been at the school and kind of hanging out in the playground, you can notice those gaps already happening. It's not like these are things that are kind of just going that you need an engineer's report. We need an engineer's report, of course, but even just by looking at the building, you're able to see a lot of the cracking and separation already just by walking through the playground. Something that's not observed quite as easily. The mechanical systems, the air central unit within the mechanical room is both loud and a source of vibration based on the old motor settings, and the existing air handlers has no cooling. I know there has been some misconception that this is just about we need air conditioning in there. That's not what this is about. Of course, we would love to have air conditioning in all of our schools, and that is important. That goes so much more beyond that. Existing building sanitation is mainly cast iron in the crawl space, and that cast iron pipe is weathered and showing signs of rust. Within the electrical system, the main distribution does not have free space and needs revisions to have the ability to add any kind of breakers. So any kind of renovations require more space. So I know a couple of years ago when we were in that middle of that heat wave, and I know I think spoke to the board expressing my concern, saying, you know, my own child is not doing well at school because of the heat. And the question was, well, why can't we just add some air conditioners? And it's because the electrical panel just cannot handle the systems within place. You can't just pop a couple more in there. It goes over their systems and what it allows. There's many other electrical items to replace, such as the fire alarm system to meet current code, pull stations to be accessible, emergency lights and battery banks, lighting to be efficient. The roof is also at a point where replacement is needed, according to the engineer's report. The roofing system at this location has failed and has reached the end of its service, according to the report. And the inadequate washroom facilities, I know that this, just even from my own children, saying that, you know, often there's long lineups and waiting to go, and that there's just not enough facilities. There's also not gender neutral washrooms other than the ones that they've converted staff washrooms into them, and they're two very small spaces, which are making do until a building can be made. And so I do appreciate the work that the school is doing to try to address these, but that's all it is. It's kind of like dressing things up here. The noise transfer, the acoustical systems at the school tend to be a major issue. And as this building is indicated by the engineer's report as well as the LRSD report, it requires multiple accessibility upgrades. Paved paths from drop-off, replacing exterior double doors to provide the compliance for different equipment that folks may be using to get in and out of the building, compliant ramps for entrances and exits, universal accessible washrooms, elevators, accessible door operations, and directionality signage. So as a person, I have lived with a disability and have been I still live with a disability, but I have been non-ambulatory throughout my life. And this has required me to use a wheelchair. And just kind of sharing my very first experience with École Varennes actually occurred before my children had started school. I, as a mom to two young children, I had a almost 2-year-old and a baby who was about 3-4 months old. I was using a wheelchair at the time. And I knew for my own mental health and taking care of me and my children, I needed to be out in community. I knew about family centers because I've worked in the division and knew how great they were. I wheeled myself over to my house. And I was met with a door I couldn't open, no buzzer I could buzz. And so I left that space just bawling because it wasn't accessible to me. And here I am trying to take care of my own mental well-being, my caretaking for my own children, knowing what I needed, but unable to access it. So for me, that has been a really big piece of my advocacy and why I feel that we really need to kind of move forward on this. So based on the engineer's report and the many significant capital projects that need to be taken, it was determined that the best course of action would be a replacement due to cost analysis and just seeing all the projects that needed to be done. Architecture shared the designs after frequent feedback from the community. I know many of you were there at those meetings, and we were able to provide our feedback and give suggestions, and the architectures came back with these beautiful designs. That was moving into an election year. So during the 2023 provincial election, the PCC sat down and we created some brochures, handouts, sample letters. We created brochures for community members to have so that when people came knocking on your door, you had a list of different questions you could ask them about how are they going to ensure that a new replacement school is done at Varennes. We created sample letters as well for them to send to the current sitting MLAs, as well as to candidates who were running, and all their emails and addresses were all provided to them so that we could have a really robust conversation with these candidates. In the fall and many of the people who came to our door were super supportive. They saw the need, the community was very supportive and really took to action of writing letters, sending emails, making the phone calls, asking those really uncomfortable conversations at the door. In the fall of 2024, through community support, we again started petitioning, writing letters, and thanks to some great community members who kind of got that ball rolling again, chatted with the media, getting that attention again on it. Letters were written to the late Minister of Education. And then at the fall conference, we were able to collect almost 400 signatures from the people who came to Parent Teachers Family Night. And we submitted that to the legislature on behalf of them. So lots of things kind of have been done, and through the media, the deputy minister stated in that Winnipeg Free Press article that he would be in contact, which he did. And so that meeting was in the very start of the school year, January 7th. Amy was there, Ron Gadez was there, and then myself and Mr. Brian O'Leary. And the meeting faced quite a bit of challenges. There were lots of parts of that conversation that I definitely didn't agree with. So, and when I shared that kind of with our committee, when I went back to PCC, they kind of felt very similar. So Brian did thank the PCC for our advocacy, and the meeting, although at times was insightful, also quite frustrating. So Mr. O'Leary shared that there are challenges in justifying new schools, noting that there haven't been significant replacements since the 1980s. However, there was actually one in the 1990s. But that was 30 plus years ago. So that's, not recent history. And other metro areas within Saskatchewan have replaced schools. So our communities are very similar, Manitoba and Saskatchewan. So if they can do it there, I'm sure that we can also do that here. So one of the things that was mentioned was about space and capacity within Louis Riel. Brian stated that LRSD will have ample free space after the new school in Sage Creek. Ron had clarified that because of the new housing development and overflow from Brands, that space is quickly utilized, and that those additional spaces will actually not be there as early as not next school year, the school year after September 2023. And also mentioned that the schools impacted by the new Sage Creek school opening are already operating above capacity. Brian stated that after that many of the space issues in LRSD are due to full-day kindergarten taking up significant spaces. However, it was clarified that in most cases, full-day kindergarten simply made part-time classrooms into full-time classrooms. In the handful of locations that it wasn't, workarounds happened. And it was also noted that he said that there are other spaces within the division. And yes, we know that there are some spaces within the division. However, those are not French immersion schools. And it's a handful of classrooms in different buildings. And those classrooms are being used for other things and other meaningful things. So saying that we can just split up the school and, a couple kids here and there doesn't seem to make sense. One of the biggest pieces that I took great offense to, and I think our entire PCC when we met and I shared the meeting with them, was in reference to how our community was viewed. So Brian said that most students are bused to Varennes. So direct quote, location is not a primary concern. He suggested that the division could use existing spaces and Varennes students could just be bused to multiple alternative locations within the division as necessary. It was dismissive because he had stated that we're not a community. And when I think about our PCC meetings just last week, where we celebrated our kickoff to Black History Month, there were families eating together, playing together, dancing together, singing together. We're a community. And even when I think about my own adult friendships, many of them are now lifelong friends that were forged at the Varennes Family Center as we waited for our kids to finish playing, or those friendships that were developed on the playground as we sat around and, drank our tea and our coffee as we would walk to the playground after school. Many of those friendships are now over a decade old. So to say that we're not a community is completely outrageous. Brian also stated that the cost of construction for a new school is approximately $700 per square foot, with total cost for any new school estimated between 70 and 100 million. But that this is not accurate for Varennes, as the project doesn't require land acquisition because it will be on the same space. And it involves having a 3-story structure, so really reducing that per square foot capital. So the school's estimated cost in 2022 was 40 million. It's a big chunk of change, but it's not the 70 to 100 million that he's quoting. And Brian had stated that the replacement cost of a building would be considered if a repair cost reached or exceeded 50%. He also stated that the provincial engineers determined that Varennes did not meet the criteria. And there were lots of different kind of follow-ups in terms of when we can schedule further meetings with provincial engineers to discuss their recommendations. It was responded that those would happen after the new provincial school finance department is established and that no timeline was kind of given. So to me, it makes the most sense to kind of have it there, less disruption for the students. They would continue going to in the old building as a new building was happening and being built. So after this meeting, a request was made to meet with senior leadership so I could just gather kind of the correct information, because as I wanted to write these letters, I wanted to make sure I had the correct numbers and data before kind of just spewing things off instead of just pulling it out from memory and older documents. This was graciously shared with myself, and that this was also now shared with our PCC meeting last week. We've written letters to the MLAs of St. Boniface and St. Patel, and the trustees should have received it, as well as to the Minister of Education. The presentation was also told to them. And just a little piece that kind of has been updated in the last less than week. We had shared that the Deputy Minister wasn't interested in sharing the counter engineer's report with us. It was suggested that we could file a formal FIPA request. So we are currently working on what that might look like, just in terms of having that transparency so that we can see, you know, what are those engineers seeing that our engineers weren't. So we're in process of doing that. So where we're hoping to go next, our community is hoping that you can help us with that advocacy in looking for a replacement school. Through sharing of this information, this is kind of one place for that, knowing that will be on YouTube and we can share that information out. Writing letters expressing your support would be very helpful, and just other ways that you may feel that might be beneficial to addressing this issue. So, thank you.
Thank you. That was.
Your big city.
Do we have any questions or comments? Trustee Tomcroft?
Yeah, wanted to thank you for that great presentation. As a veterans parent myself, you and I, Charlene, stood side by side collecting those signatures at the 2 family nights ago, and it was pretty rare to find unanimity, absolute unanimity amongst every single person who came. And I've never seen unanimity on any kind of important topic like that before, and don't expect to ever again.
Yeah.
I also wanted to, with your permission, share the little remark that you made to me last Thursday at family night with respect to the notion that the Varennes community is not a community. And when the two of us were standing together in the hallway, watching and participating in a basically spontaneous dance party that erupted outside the African talking drum performance. It was, you turned to me and said, how could anyone say that this isn't a community here? And that really hit me, and it's true. And I wanted to thank you for everything you've done. And expect to continue to do. I absolutely will be there beside you again and into the future as this advocacy continues. And if I may just add that although I certainly want to see Varennes as a parent, as a spouse of a teacher there, want to see it upgraded, I think that, as you mentioned, that the implications of this go far beyond just Varennes as well. Like, and students and families who live in core and mature neighborhoods deserve modern schools for their children to be educated in. You should not have to live on the periphery of an urban area in not just any suburb, but a brand new suburb, because even the suburbs of one generation ago no longer have a modern facility. And so and I think that if this is successful, this campaign, when it's successful, it will be a message of hope for many, many core and mature communities around Winnipeg, and not just in the LRC. And I guess just quickly wanted to say thank you as well to Varhan's grandparents, Bruce and
Yes,
Carol
Bruce and
Waters.
Carol, and I was
for
going to
their,
end that with the thank you.
Yeah,
right there. Yeah.
it was really fun being, getting to work with them, on, collecting those signatures as well. And I look forward to working with the entire, illustrating once again, I think, the point that Varennes is a community. Varennes is a community of interest.
Mhm.
And it will continue to demonstrate that again and again and again till and beyond the replacement of the school. So thank you so much for everything you've done and keep it up.
Thank you,
Thanks.
trustee Palmquist. Anybody else have something? Well, I just want to remind you that you're free to, you don't have to stay for the whole board meeting. We understand how busy you are.
Trustee Nemeth.
Okay, I'll get trustee Nemeth before I finish what I was saying. Trustee Nemeth, sorry about missing you there.
No, that's quite all right. So I just wanted to express also my appreciation to the group because the information that you offered, not only the photos but the timeline, I think for anybody watching, is a really important illustration of the circumstances that your community is navigating. And I just want to reiterate on behalf of the board, and it's entirely possible that I'm stealing the vice chair's thunder in saying this, but you know, as elected trustees, our work is advocacy to the provincial government while you are continuing to advocate with the folks that you've elected that serve you through the provincial legislature. So this is very much a shared effort, and I want you to be reassured that any opportunity that we have to share space or break bread with our MLA colleagues, École Varennes inevitably comes up as a topic of conversation. And we certainly are aware of the how dire the situation gets every single day, more and more, and that you have a commitment. If you didn't know it already by the work that we've been doing, please be reassured that we are committed to seeing this project happen, and we are working hard and as often as we get the opportunity to create conversation related to this. So you know, it's shared work, it's important work, and I look forward to the point someday seeing it come to fruition.
Great, thank you, trustee Nemeth. You said it better than I could. I appreciate that. Wonderful. Trustee Gordon?
I just wanted to say, I appreciate the effort that's being made to provide the accurate information. Going back and seeking that makes everything stronger, both for yourselves and for us. So sometimes when you advocate, right, that becomes secondary, and I appreciate the fact that you made such an effort. It's not very often that I get to say this, that you know, as a grandparent of somebody at École Varennes, it's very much appreciated how united the PAC and the community is, and how it's being done in such a positive way. So I appreciate that.
It's been great because actually the next kind of the jump off in 2024 was from grandparents who were like, hey, we need to, you know, where's this kind of dropped off, which is great that it's not just us, you know, as the parents, but also the community. So that's been great.
Thank you.
It's true.
Trustee Walker?
Want to thank you for your advocacy work in the province. And I had the opportunity to come out to École Varennes parent teacher night, and I observed the community, and I could tell it was quite a tight knit group of people coming together, food being eaten, and there was a baby running around one of your teachers and a child. So I think that those are all really real indications to me that it is a place where everyone cares about what we're doing. Thank you, and I'll continue to stand on
Thank you,
having
trustee.
conversations with our MLA.
Thank you, trustee Walker. And we have one more comment from our superintendent. He'd like.
Yeah, so you've heard how the trustees are very supportive of our collective desire for École Varennes. So specific to the letter you've written to the minister and brought to our attention, you can expect the chair of the board will also be ready for clarity on all our paths.
Thank you.
So like I started to say, you guys don't have to stay. We understand how busy you are. We really appreciate you took the time out to open our eyes and to give us the true information as Trustee Nordheim said. She said it beautifully. And you're free to go or stay or whatever you want to do.
Great, thank you.
I'm just gonna walk them up quick and then we'll get ready for our next president.
Always.
Wanted to give you a shout out on social media.
We have folks online, correct?
Yep.
We might move into section 5. Senior leadership team information to the board. And we have chair returning to listen to some colleagues in the LRSD speak to us about the new LRSD resource allocation framework.
Excited to hear that.
Why don't we have Superintendent Cadiz welcome our friends.
Thank you very much. So I am very pleased and very proud to present to you tonight an overview of a new framework that we've developed. And I've got some key leaders in our division that have helped put this together over the last year. And they're going to share some of that work with us this evening. So I've got the divisional principal, Amelia Gunther, and our clinical supervisor, Lisa Timchuk, and Alex Penuta as well. That will be sharing parts of the document that we developed with you. I'll introduce the document by saying that our goal in putting this together is to replace some existing structures that we had in place for many years and that had served their purpose over time, but we felt that we needed to do some changes in order to reframe our thinking and to bring some clarity and common language and common understanding to something that's very, very important to the work that we do every day, and that is supporting the needs of individual students. In some cases, when we're working with students, in order to attain the goals we've set out for them, there's adult support that is required that goes beyond just the classroom, the regular supports that we would provide under daily circumstances. And in those cases where an adult is required to be a supplementary support or needs that go beyond the curriculum, it's important that we have a clear way of understanding what that means, that we can be equitable in assessing the need and assessing the resources that we can distribute. So in this process, what we tried to do was build a structure that was not that was very objective. That was one that we could count on being consistent across the division, a common language, and a common understanding as to how we interpret student needs, with a constant focus on building student independence. And so this is not something that focuses on a student based on their, it's a strengths-based focus, I guess, that we're trying to say. We're getting away from the idea of just presenting needs as one focus, but thinking of it as a potential stepping stone to another level of independence for the student. And so regardless of whatever that need is, there's always ways that we can build greater independence. There may be certain areas of a child's life that they will require assistance with for many, many years and perhaps the rest of their lives. But there are elements of that support that could grow and they could gain independence in, and we want to make sure we're always focusing on that. So this process started back in a year ago in January 24, where we got together with probably over 40 participants from across the division, school principals, vice principals, student services teachers, clinical services staff, as well as some members of senior leadership. And eventually we involved some members of our information systems department as well. And we were able to review some of our current practices and look at the model that we had in place, identify some of the strengths and what came out of that model and things we wanted to retain, and also identify some of the shortcomings. And then comparing that to some other models that we looked at from jurisdictions across Canada. And in doing that, we ended up selecting a model from Surrey, British Columbia as a basis for this, although our model looks quite different from theirs, but it did give us a starting point in terms of how we would do our work. And so along the way, we were able to meet with different stakeholder groups and collect tremendous amounts of feedback, including all of our student services teachers, leadership team, and so on. And those changes that were reported to us, or the feedback we received, did influence many, many changes along the way and brought us to the version of the document that we have today. And now I will pass it over to Mia Gunther to talk a little bit about the contents of one section of the document.
Thank you. So the focus of the framework is in line with ISP in that it prioritizes inclusive practices. It does reinforce our commitment to equity and keeping the student at the center of all of our planning and taking a thoughtful and holistic approach, really so that children and youth can see themselves represented and truly know, have some agency in their learning and imagine a future. And this framework helps to put the right supports in place so that we can help them get to where they would like to go. So the framework connects to the LRSD's priorities and MYSP actions, specifically around trauma-sensitive practices, identifying and reducing barriers to learning, tailoring the learning experiences to students' strengths and needs with the right tools to be successful. Yes, there are links. And meaningfully engaging student voice. It also supports early intervention, equitable transportation, and creating accessible learning environments, while reinforcing the shared responsibility that we all have in supporting learners who are neurodiverse and who bring a rich diversity of abilities, knowledge, and wonderings into our classrooms. At the heart of this framework is the belief that all children and youth feel accepted, valued, and supported in their learning, that students can be who they are within an inclusive learning community and experience equal access to the benefits of citizenship, which really sustains the value of democracy and public education. Framework is rooted in one of our own policies, appropriate educational programming. It's aligned with the Canadian Charter of Rights. It adheres to the Human Rights Code. I don't know if anyone here has ever heard Kevin Lamoureux speak. He is an instructor at U of W, PhD candidate. His work and research focuses on equitable practices. So about, I think, a decade ago now, I attended a student leadership conference with a few students of mine at the Canadian Human Rights Museum here in Winnipeg. He was a keynote speaker and he opened it up by saying that we have human rights because there have been human wrongs. And I feel like this framework supports every right the child has in accessing a rich education by identifying and removing barriers to that access. So here's a visual that represents the layers of support that students can access or receive at LRSD. So beginning with the core team in the center, you have the student, the classroom teacher, and the caregiver, and we really want to focus on strengthening that base. Branching out, you will see additional supports within a school if that's required, and the outer layer there represents an outline of the divisional supports that students have access to if indicated by the resource. So once a school team engages in the process that the framework provides, resources are then allocated based on student needs, prioritizing those who require the most support while setting conditions for accessibility, equal access to rich learning, and independence. So you'll see 3 domains there that we'll be looking at when we think about what does support look like for students. So the first one is human resources, the people, right? The teachers, the support staff, the clinicians and admin. And then you see the structures. Those are aspects of the system that we can maneuver to shape how that support is delivered. So we'd be looking at timetables, classroom routines. The key thing there is learning experiences and assessment. So do our teaching practices and our assessment practices match and align with what students bring to the table? And can they share what they know in a way that makes sense with their abilities, their skills? And finally, the physical resources that we have, which are those indoor and outdoor learning spaces and materials that help to create inclusive environments. So really essentially, the framework answers the question, what does support look like? What does it mean for this child at this time in this learning space? And from a systems level perspective, this is a dynamic working document, and it's meant to assist in meeting student needs so that they can experience success, growing independence, which of course evolves throughout their time in schooling, and as schools or as students change. This framework highlights and supports schools in prioritizing needs. I'll pass it to Lisa.
So one of the key foundations of this document is to be able to categorize and prioritize the needs of students to make education accessible to all students and to support them in our shared goal of them becoming independent learners and ultimately citizens. So the first chunk has teams or school staff looking at allocation of these resources in a meaningful way and prioritizing students' needs accordingly. So the 3 categories that the working group, based on the survey document, established was the priority 1, 2, and were broken down into priority 1, 2, and 3. So priority 1, healthcare needs, and this will make sense once I explain that, is the healthcare and medical needs are the highest priority. And addressing these basic and essential needs is necessary for a child to be able to attend school. So these are the services and the resources provided to address and manage needs, their physical and any other health related needs, and usually involves medical monitoring, health interventions, managing chronic conditions and specific healthcare requirements. So the categories within priority 1 would be things such as, we'll go back, Jamie. Yeah, well, I'm staying here for a little while. I'll tell you when to advance. This is good, perfect.
Verbal cues are good, nonverbal.
For sure. I'll give you a nonverbal cue to advance for sure. So stuff that, pieces that would fall under the healthcare needs would be such as like G-tube. So adults providing G-tube, catheterization, suctioning for students, monitoring seizures, and then glucose monitoring. So that's what would fit under healthcare. The second column that we look at are our access needs. And so this is looking at pieces that are essential for students to be able to live within their community or be able to attend school. We've defined access needs into 4 different categories. We put them in the document, not in terms of prioritizing what those categories are, but alphabetically, knowing that all 4 are equally important. The first one are activities of daily living. So those are the basic tasks and functions that are essential for personal care. So things like supporting students with toileting outside of catheterization, supporting them with feeding outside of G-tubes, but also looking at supporting them with dressing, mobility and transfers. So students who require support from wheelchair to chair or wheelchair to toilet or for table, and then for hygiene. The second category is instrumental activities of daily living. And so this one might not be as familiar to everyone, but these are pieces that are allowing students to meaningfully participate in community activities like volunteering, recreational programming, and management of common everyday activities such as being able to transition, manage finances, prepare a simple meal, housekeeping, etc. And so if we look at students, especially who fall under a category of having an intellectual disability and are unable to access the curriculum, what are the life skills that we would be able to support them as they move into community living as adults? The third piece that falls under this priority category would be communication. So being able to develop functional communication skills. So whether that's expressive language, intelligibility, using augmentative and alternative communication or ABC would fall under this category specifically. And then the fourth piece of this category would be regulation. So being able to manage one's own emotions, their sensory processing, and their cognitive skills so that they're able to function in their lives. Priority 3 then is our last category within priority, and that would be instructional support needs. So some adult support may be necessary for some students to be able to access curriculum or achieve their expected learning outcomes. And so this would be more targeted instruction for students or small groups of students in the areas of literacy, numeracy, and language development. And so when schools are looking at their needs, they'll be able to categorize students within these needs to be able to determine how to act resources for them. You can advance as I pass this on to Alex.
Thank you. And so one of the important ways that we work together to try and understand the way that these supports get to our students was to talk about proximity of those adult supports. And what this really meant was looking at the dimensions of closeness and frequency. So how near does that support need to be, and how often is it needed to provide that right size support for our students? When we looked at that, those ran in multiple levels, but right from something like as needed infrequent support from an adult who's identified in a plan, right up to those students who would need somebody close by at all times during the day. And having those different levels really helped us enter into those conversations with school teams about right sizing those supports. What is that needed level of support? And how can we, through those identifications, remain flexible in supporting students so that for an individual student, we are providing supports that are optimal for them in building their independence. And as a group, as a whole, how do those supports stay flexible so that we can meet the needs of groups, classrooms? That was really essential to us using this framework as a productive planning tool and making sure that we could keep developing independence for students at the heart of all of our allocation of adult resources. As we went through this process with our really amazing set of colleagues, we really leaned on the various perspectives that we got from administrators, from student services teachers, from clinicians, to be able to make conceptualizing this part of it into something that is accessible and usable to teams to meet its purpose. Those perspectives were really important so that when we created this document, a step was to create examples of what this support looks like. And through those very perspectives, we were able to have school teams think about being able to see themselves and their students and their teams and the practices they engage in reflected in that support then, so that ultimately they could use this as intended to keep the student at the center with their independence growing. And so through that flexibility and right sizing of supports, we were really able to bring a different perspective into allocating adult resources beyond just the ways that we had previously done that before. And so big thanks to that whole team. This was, as Ron said, dozens of people brought together with multiple perspectives to be able to conceptualize this in a better path to supporting our students.
I think the process of putting this to action is just begun in our schools. And school teams are now starting to input into the system that was developed by our IS department. It's really a wonderful click and go kind of interface that they've developed that's very easy to navigate. It will allow us to collect the information and do it in multiple angles in Power BI data dashboards, both at the classroom level, the school level, and for us at the system level as well. To really get a good picture as to the type and the intensity of supports that we are providing to individual students across the division. The thing that's at the center of all of this is always the needs of the individual student, with the classroom teacher at the center of the implementation of any plans. And knowing that sometimes when these extra supports are required, we want to be able to talk in the same way about it. There's clarity what everyone's role is supposed to be, and clarity about when we need to apply these supports and for what purpose. And so I really do welcome that clearer conversation to take place. And with the focus on student independence constantly at the forefront, I believe that we will make tremendous gains as we move forward in having those conversations in very consistent fashion across the system. So basically, this underscores our commitment to inclusive student-centered education, leveraging the resources effectively and equitably to meet health, access, instructional needs, and promoting greater independence and equity and opportunities for all students. Thank you very much. Questions? And before I end out, I do want to thank the leadership, especially Alex and Lisa, who have been with the project since the very beginning. A year ago, Mia joined us in September. Lisa worked closely with the team on the priority section, Alex on the proximity section, and Mia and I worked on the preamble piece that sets the foundational framework for this. So their leadership has just been essential to all of this, and I want to thank them.
Trustee Nordheim?
So I have two questions. The first is, when we're speaking about kids who come with some behaviors, so not in the medical, I'm assuming they fall into priority 2.
They do.
Okay, and so can you kind of give me, I'm trying to picture, I know we're student centered, but try and talk me through what does it look like for an educational assistant with this kind of proximity type of plan? How does that work?
I think we, go ahead.
He's
Sure.
talking about proximities.
Yeah, sure. So the proximity would help us understand from the school team's perspective in their planning, again, how close and how often. And with respect to something like behavior, the added layer to that question would be how close and how often to work on developing the skill we believe is behind that behavior. Right, so rather than just how close and how often to safeguard,
Right,
how close and how often to build a skill that would move a student who's experiencing behavioral dysregulation toward building whatever skill that is that would allow them to be more successful, more regulated, and safe, ultimately safer. So that's the extra layer to that.
so I guess from a board perspective then, when we're looking at budget implications for staffing, I'm assuming that this would change from September, like where we would have more needs in terms of developing independence at the beginning of the year and gradually decreasing that. Is that kind of the ultimate goal, maybe?
I think to an extent, yes, but in other cases, no. It could be that we've gotten to a certain point where we've attained the goal or the term that we've identified, understanding that there's a next level to that as well. So as you scaffold the steps, you know, the example we always go back to is toileting. And so there's multiple steps that could be independence developed in that area. And once that one level is developed, another level can be added as a next step goal if it's possible.
Thank you.
Was that the 2?
That was the 2, yeah.
Anything else? Not, again, thank you for a wonderful presentation. We really appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Again, you can stay, or we know how busy you are if you don't want to. We don't feel bad. We understand. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we can move on to 5.2, School and Classroom Support Team. Corey Catholic, Director of School and Classroom Supports, is going to share about the agenda from the SC meeting.
Yeah, thank you. As you're probably aware, we meet monthly with all itinerant teachers and clinicians, as well as Senior Leadership 21. And as we're moving towards, into the new year, just want to go over the agenda and just touch on a couple things. February, March, and April meetings, we're going to be following a new format, and we will be visiting divisional programs and community agency partners to get a better understanding of the resources available to students and their families. These visits will help us better connect with community partners and create supportive environments for students. I want to thank Misty Belcourt at Renee Delorme Center and Darren Baker and Ray Keesman at LRATC for hosting a group of for each of these meetings. So essentially, we're taking the large group and dividing it into 3. And then each group will have the opportunity to visit ATC and talk about programming at ATC, similar with RDC. And then again, our divisional vice principals, Tricia and Kelsey, and clinical supervisors, Alex, Lisa, and Amber, are going to, on one of the days, provide opportunities for folks to connect with community partners. Some of those ideas are St. Amant School, Huddle, Need Center, Healthy Muslim Families, Future Forwards, New Directions. So each one won't be available as a choice every time, but for the most part, everybody's going to have an opportunity to branch out and be in our community. The next piece, Kim Mackey, a school social worker, and Keith Moen, a school psychologist, led the team through a deeper understanding of how in our collective work, we create supportive environments for children to thrive. Regulation, relationships, and reasoning inspired by Dr. Bruce Perry's neurosequential models is meant to help teachers, clinicians, and caregivers understand and address the effects of trauma on the brain. When students are able to regulate and connect, they engage more in their education and building positive relationships. I especially appreciated how Kim and Keith also delivered that message, not to us working with children, but also us and caring for ourselves and caring for each other. Lastly, Divisional Principal Nicholas Kelly continued to facilitate conversations at our table groups, reflecting on the multi-year strategic plan and emphasizing our roles in actively promoting and supporting its initiatives within our respective areas of work. That is something that we began right in September, and now, well, by no means we're moving off, but now we're more into the action phase and how we're going to support the initiatives within the MWIS.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or? Thank you. We'll move on to 5.3 then, capital projects update. Superintendent Mishilek and members of the team will provide us some updates.
I'll be really quick. Island Lakes Community School modular unit relocation project is, that project is moving forward. We're in the midst of mobilizing the modular units at École Saint-Germain, moving them to Island Lakes Community School. We've poured the concrete last week as weather permitted, and so despite winter, we're moving along with this project. So we get 2 additional modular classrooms opened up in the community. École Sage Creek School, I visited, or rather, the school that will, the French immersion K-8 school that will serve Sage Creek and Bonavista communities. Doesn't have a name yet. And I've got to stop suggesting it does. I had a chance to visit the school last week, and things are moving along. I'm very confident that we'll open our doors to some staff in September. Pictures of school taken in January. So it's quite something to witness just how in one classroom you have floors and essentially floors and ceilings and lighting installed, and another classroom is still just a bare brick, but there's a purpose to the what appears to be madness to someone who's not an expert in how you quickly ensure a school is built and ready for occupation, ready to be occupied. So amazing to see. Even the millwork is starting to be installed. So I believe trustees have been working with their admin secretary, their executive assistant, Denise Madden, to schedule a visit soon in the school, correct? Vice Chair? Yeah, so I'm looking forward to my next visit, being accompanied by trustees. And École Saint-Germain, we're replacing dual boilers. We talked about that earlier in the fall. And our universal nutrition program, ongoing renovations, we're renovating at Frontenac School. And we're hoping to complete that reno soon. And renovations beginning at Marion School. So lots of good work going on there.
Excellent. Are there any questions or comments from the superintendent? That's trustee Nemeth, no? Oh, I thought I saw your hand. Okay. Excellent, thank you. Our next item is item 5.4, student accident semi-annual report, and that's Secretary Treasurer Rudnicki.
Thank you very much. So yeah, this is our semi-annual report. So this is for September 1st up until December 31st, 2024. And so just to remind the trustees and the public, our incident reports are categorized in three kind of buckets. The first bucket is minor injuries, second is moderate, and then severe. And so for a minor, something to be considered a minor injury, it's essentially injuries that are resulting from scratches, bruise, scrapes, minor cuts, minor sprains. Moderate are injuries that result in a serious cut and more severe sprains or maybe a broken finger. And severe would be injuries to the eye, face, back, or resulting in a broken arm or leg. And so for this period, we had a total of 213 incidences, in which 115 were minor related, 66 were moderate, and 32 were severe. And in regards to the more severe, we also discussed how many of those were vehicle related. And so we had in this period 2 vehicular incidences with children involved. One was at Victor Wyatt School, another one in Frontenac, and both were, one was a moderate and one was a minor injury, in which both were bike incidents where a vehicle collided with a bike. Both were, when you look at the details of it, they were at very low speeds. Another piece of data that we're going to present going forward are our bus incidences, because those are actually vehicle incidences. And so it was shared by our transportation department today that for this period, there were 14 incidences, 6 of which involved incidences where there were children on board. And of those 6, there was 1 injury of a child, and it was deemed minor, and it was a bump to the head on the side of on the glass on the side of the glass there. And so that is the report for the vehicle and student accidents for this period.
Treasurer Rudnicki, is there any questions or comments for him? Okay, then I'll move on. We're going to move to 5.5, Middle and Late Immersion Information Evening, and Assistant Superintendent Anderson is going to share an update.
Thank you. An information evening held on January 28th welcomed approximately 100 parents and students interested in finding out more about the middle and late immersion programs. The middle immersion program begins in grade 4 and is currently offered at École Julie Vielle and École Henri Bergeron. A third site will be added at École Sage Creek Bonavista, the new school serving the Sage Creek and Bonavista communities this coming fall. A map of the catchment area. Oh, and Jimmy, can you just click on the link there, please? It's right there, and just scroll down. Map of the catchment areas and a list of the English program schools served by Each of the three sites is displayed on the screen currently. The late immersion program is new to Louis Riel School Division, although it has been offered for some time in the Winnipeg School Division and the River East Transcona School Division. This program begins in grade 6 and will be open to students from across the division. Both programs provide an intense focus on French language acquisition over a 3-year period, with students joining peers in their local French immersion program schools in grades 7 and 9 respectively. The application process, Jamie, if you could just scroll down a bit more, please. The application process is available through the division's website and opened yesterday. Applications are pouring in as we speak. I wanted to point out in closing that the introduction of the late immersion program and the addition of a third site for middle immersion supports the multi-year strategic plan goal 2.5 by increasing access to French immersion, and is something that we know is particularly valuable to our newcomer families that perhaps miss the opportunity to enroll when their children were in kindergarten or grade 1.
Any questions?
Can you clarify for me late immersion? So grade 7, they go into grade 7 classes?
Oh, no, sorry, that was respectively. So middle immersion, they're in an isolated cohort for grades 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
And then they integrate other French immersion classes in grade 7. The late immersion is in grades 6, 7, and 8.
Right.
And then they integrate with French immersion peers in grade 9.
Okay, so but they're separated at grades, okay. And so what schools are those, the late immersion? They can go to?
At the information evening, we presented the potential location as being at École Sage Creek Bonavista. We're currently looking at whether or not there will be sufficient space in that school. One of the inconsistencies that we have in calculating building capacity provincially is the building, as it was designed and promoted, has a 900 student capacity. However, with the province's initiative to have a maximum of 20 students in kindergarten to grade 3 in a school of that size with 20 kindergarten to grade 3 classes at 5 students a class, the capacity of the building was actually only 800 students. So we are currently reviewing the location for that program and have an alternate location in mind.
I'm new at this. This is my first night here.
You're doing great, Charlie.
Thank you. The next part is 6.1. 5 point. Capital projects we already did, student. Version we did, the international development, 5.6.
It's me. I was at the legislature this afternoon and where we celebrated International Development Week in Manitoba. And the event was hosted by the Manitoba Council for International Cooperation. A council that I don't know that all Manitobans are aware of. We do quite amazing work in Manitoba. Networking NGOs from across Canada that partner with communities across the globe. And we celebrated all of that amazing work this afternoon at the legislature. And its connection to the sustainable goals, the development goals that have been a part of that international development journey for some time now. and is also highlighted in our multi-year strategic plan. So the week and today's celebration just reminds us in LRSD that we have a strategic action 4.5 that speaks to the importance of building a better world together, having a global mindset in LRSD and nurturing that mindset that we want the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, to be a part of the learning journey for all our students in all of our schools, K to 12. That we want to make a connection between the Sustainable Development Goals and the United Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. How advancing those Sustainable Development Goals obligates us to think of Indigenous peoples and cultures across the world, across the globe, and drawing that connection, making that connection. And so we're ensuring that this week of celebration is an opportunity to highlight this strategic action and letting our community know that we have lots of folks in classrooms across doing amazing work. And you heard from them last December. On the 17th, you had a community of educators, kids, and parents come to you to tell you about the amazing work they're doing and reminding us as leaders in LRSD of our obligations. Now, their focus was on a specific Sustainable Development Goal, and that is the urgency of taking action relative to the climate crisis that we face. And so here again, our strategic action helps us see that having an indigenous perspective on land-based education, the importance of Indigenous rights are at the heart of taking impactful action as it relates to that Sustainable Development Goal of addressing the climate crisis. And so you can read more about how I'm making these connections in a spotlight story on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any questions or comments for our superintendent? Trustee Nordheim?
Well, just that could not be more relevant in this media inundated conversation about becoming more insular. This is good to hear that we're not. Just on the political front, though, I just wondered if, as we're working with MLAs, if there's a desire to recognize that Mike Moyes has become part of cabinet, that perhaps a letter from the board congratulating him on that move just kind of keeps the conversation going back and forth.
I think some of us have sent some individual ones from the board. It's a great idea. Thank you, Trustee Nordheim. We'll get a note made of that. Anybody else have any other comments? Okay, we're on to number 6. Jamie again, Jamie Rudnicki, Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I just wanted to give public and the trustees an update on budget. And so first thing I want to mention is that I just want to direct our community to our website and provide their feedback on thought exchange as to what they'd like to see for consideration in budget for 2025-2026 school year. We are currently waiting for our provincial announcement for our grant for next year. Typically that comes out January 31st, but we've been told that it's going to come next week sometime. So once we receive our portion of the funding here at L'Oreal School Division, we will busy ourselves preparing a budget so that we can ready for the budget consultation meeting, which will happen on Thursday, February 27th. This is a hybrid meeting from 6:30 to 8, and so I encourage everyone in the community to get involved, whether it's online or in person. So those are the updates that I want to share today.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay, we'll move on to number 7, staffing, retirement notices. And Superintendent Michelle will share the following information.
So the board is provided with 2 letters of retirement. We have Susan Fiasco, principal at St. George School, letting us know that she intends to retire effective June 30th, 2025. And Ross Cathers, principal at Samuel Berlin School, also retiring. And so both colleagues have been around a long time, have contributed a great deal, and we're hoping to celebrate their careers, see them off in a really good way. And community can expect leadership opportunities as we fill vacancies as a result.
Great, thank you. We wish them both well, long and excellent careers in education, both of them. Now we're moving to 7.2, the school administrator transfers. And again, we're calling on our superintendent to clarify for us here.
So I'm bringing forward to the board some transfers in anticipation of postings for vacancy in school administration for 25-26. So you'll recall that principal at Victor Major is moving on to a new opportunity. We talked about that in 2024. So as a result, we had a vacancy at Victor Major School, and through dialogue with senior leadership, Principal Karen Duffield, who's principal at Shamrock School, has requested, and we've agreed, another leadership opportunity, and specifically at Victor Major. So I'm happy to put forward this motion for your consideration that Karen Duffield, the move to be transferred to the principalship at Victor Major School effective August 1st, 2025. We also have 2 vice principalships transfers to vice principalships for you to consider this evening. Lisa Albrecht and Michelle Kennedy, both vice principals at École Sage Creek School. At the moment, we are recommending that they be transferred effective August 1st to the new school, French Immersion School, serving Sage Creek and Bonavista.
Questions or?
This goes to a vote.
All right, I'd like to propose that the following propose the motion. Following school administrators be transferred effective August 1st. Karen Duffield is principal of Victor Major School. Lisa Albert is vice principal of the school serving Sage Creek, Bonavista, and Michelle Kennedy as vice principal of the school serving Sage Creek. So I'm going to need a mover. Ian, thank you. Trustee Walker, and a seconder, Trustee Turner. Do a vote. All in favor? Get that voting in there?
Trustee Nordhagen? It's still loading. Yes or no? Yes. Okay.
Very, thank you. Yeah, mine's still loading. We'll just give it a minute.
We're good.
Sure, you don't.
No.
Their struggle is getting back
into.
We have it on the screen. There we go.
Oh, I got it back. I got it back.
Okay.
Thanks for all your patience, you guys. My first time sharing and doing both meetings, and you've been very patient with me, and I really appreciate that. Here we are, correspondence, school board correspondence. We received correspondence from several places. Education Funding Branch. We also 8.2 Manitoba School Board Association correspondence received. We have some, all right, we have our trustee Nemeth would like to speak to one of our correspondence from the Manitoba School Board Association. This is local choice from January 23rd. So I'm going to turn it over to you, trustee Nemeth.
Yeah, so on page 10, I believe it is, there's a memo from MSBA talking about an initiative that was undertaken several years ago and is being brought back as a way to highlight and celebrate unique initiatives that are taking place in school divisions around the province. So if you scroll down and when you're looking at those, you'll see what was submitted in the past. There's a couple there from Louis Riel. And I'm just hoping that as a group, we can take steps to ensure that Louis Riel submits a few pieces of information and photos that will help broaden what's going to be offered on the MSBA website by way of celebrating some of the initiatives that we support and that are having an impact in our school community. So I leave that for the chair, vice chair, superintendent, whoever else might get involved in that as a way to celebrate some of the many good things that are happening in LRSD.
Wonderful. Thank you, trustee Nemeth. Does anyone have any questions or comments for trustee Nemeth? Okay, not. Thank you. We'll move on to action items. Okay, School Choice Report 2024-25. Assistant Superintendent Anderson will provide context to the SLT recommendation of proposed school.
Very good. Thank you very much. At the leadership team meeting in January, we reviewed current and projected enrollments at schools across the school division and asked feedback from principals and vice principals about schools where they felt there would be considerable enrollment pressures and that they would like to see the board limit schools of choice applications. The senior leadership team reviewed the recommendations and the data and has brought forward the list of 10 schools before you for consideration for being close to schools of choice applications for the upcoming school year, except in circumstances where there may be some exceptional situation that needs to be considered. It's in the wording of the motion.
Thank you. So I'll read the motion. Whereas certain schools are experiencing significant enrollment pressures, and be it resolved that the following schools be closed to schools of choice requests until further notice in accordance with section 58.4 1A of the Public Schools Act. Collège Béliveau, Dakota Collegiate, École Guillot, École Varennes, Highbury School, Island Lakes Community School, J.H. Brents Collegiate, Marion School, Sage Creek School English Program, Windsor Park Collegiate. That special consideration may only be given in exceptional circumstances and at the discretion of the superintendent of schools or designate. I'm going to need a mover for that. Okay, trustee Turner mover and seconder trustee Paul. All in favor?
Sorry, I haven't opened it up yet.
Oh, sorry, am I too fast?
No, yeah, I'm too slow.
I think it's just the technology tonight. It's weird.
Now it's open.
Now it's making me nervous when it does that again.
Mine hasn't come up yet, but I vote yes.
It's carried.
Yeah, good. Okay, now we've come to
We're good.
Good, okay, good. Thanks, you guys. We've come to number 10, the public question period, where verified virtual participants and verified in-person participants bring forward questions. Do we have any questions from members of our public tonight? No. Great. Right. Then,
Nothing online either.
no, thank you. Reminder, I appreciate it. All right, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8:04, and I hope you all have a wonderful. Thank you for coming. Thank you for all your help.